Hi everyone, my name is Kennedy and this is my top 5 best and top 5 worst reads of 2023. 2023 is the year where I started reading again after like 10 years, and I didn't start until the end of June, which was my birthday. And since then, I also had some reading slumps and just got pretty busy. So I only read, I think, like 30 books, which is fine. I'm happy for it. I read a lot of books and glad that I'm back in it. But that being said, since I read such a small amount of books and all of them were really, really good from all the years I've been missing, they're pretty much all amazing and well-rated books. We're gonna start with the top 5 worst, and just because I don't like them doesn't mean that I think they're bad books. Most of these are actually really popular books because, again, I bought all the ones that were popular and that I really thought I would like. So these weren't the worst things ever. I didn't hate most of these, but that being said, they were just not as good as the other ones I read. So here are my top 5 going from the worst to the best. Coming in at number 5, already starting off pretty badly because this is one of like the biggest highly rated books, is Six of Crows. I was surprised myself that I didn't like this book. I don't really know why I didn't like this book. I was in a big reading slump and I read this book to get me out of the slump. I was like, I need something fast-paced. I need good, fun characters. And that's what everyone described this as. So I truly thought this would get me out of the slump, and it just did not. I read about 230 pages, and it's actually the only book that I DNF'd this whole year. I do not usually DNF, but I just couldn't get into it, and that is why it came in last place for the year. So yeah, I got about 230 pages in. I was just not interested in the characters, not interested in the world or anything going on, and I just couldn't get through it. Again, there's nothing in particular I even disliked. The writing was fine. I can see how the characters were intriguing to some people. I don't know why. It might have been because I was in a reading slump, but sadly, I could not get through it. Next is an even, probably not more popular, but just as loved right now, is Two Twisted Crowns, which is One Dark Window's sequel to the duology. One Dark Crowns I really enjoyed, although I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else seems to. It's a very fun read, but it read very YA to me, and it's not marketed as YA. It's supposed to be some deep fantasy, gothic horror type of thing. It just read really YA. There's a lot of romance into it. And I don't know, I was feeling iffy about it, but then the end really pulled through and made it really unique. The magic system with the cards is really unique. So the end got me hopeful for the second one, and the second one, I just really was not feeling it. I did have fun along the way. They made a different POV to my favorite character, Elm, which was really cool. But they pretty much made his whole personality into this like insta-love relationship. And then the two main relationship that were in the first book, it just never really, we didn't find out what happened with them really, or they were just barely in it. The main character, Elspeth, was barely in it because of things that happened. And to me, I just think it went a way that I didn't really like. So again, I had some fun times reading it. I like a lot of the characters, but it just was not for me. Next, we have the Atlas 6. I feel like this one is pretty controversial just because Ivy Blake's writing. It is my cousin's favorite book. That's why I read it. And this one was pretty hard for me to read. Her writing, it's like describing something that could be described in like 2 sentences, and she uses 2 pages for it, which sometimes is good, but most of the time it was just not it. It's a very, very character-driven book with little plot, but it is interesting. The characters were pretty intriguing, but for the most part, I just felt like I got nothing, and nothing really happened out of this book. I still do want to try more of hers, though. I want to try One for My Enemy. So, or Masters of Death. So we'll see how that goes. Next, another controversial one. And again, my cousin's, these are her top 2 favorite books. So this is If We Were Villains by Amal Rio. This book has a lot of potential. I do get why people like it, but to me, it was just very surface level. It was very predictable. I'm not even mad about all the Shakespeare stuff. I kind of liked that. I don't mind that it had a slow start, but I didn't really like the payoff. And there were some things the writer did in this book, like just throwing scenes or plot points in there in order to like make the character get to somewhere in a very obvious way that I just didn't like. A lot of it felt forced and surface level. And I read this before The Secret History. The Secret History is going to be in my next 5. So maybe after reading The Secret History, this makes me like this book even less, because even though a lot of people don't think they're compared, I thought they were very similar, and The Secret History did it way better. But yeah, it is an interesting read. Just, again, not for me, as all these books. Last one, so the best of the worst, I guess, for me this year is The Justice of Kings. I was so excited to read this book because, like, political, high fantasy, like, Game of Thrones type shows are everything. You see Game of Thrones collection back there. I love it. I named my dog after it. So this was the kind of book that I love, or thought I would love. I love high political fantasies, but this was very hard to get through. I almost DNF'd it, but I pushed through. And again, I just felt like not enough happened. I don't even mind slow burns, but I felt like there was just no point to the slow burn and no payoff. The magic system is cool. I know it has a couple other books too, which I won't be reading, but yeah, I think it had a lot of potential and just didn't do it for me. All right, now we're gonna go into my top 5 books. And if it was a series, I just picked like one of the books out of the series. So yeah, this time we're going to start from the number 5 to the number 1, which will be my favorite. So coming in at number 5 of my top 5 books of 2023, we have The Poppy War. I was pretty certain I was going to like this book because, again, I love high fantasy, a lot of magic, and I really like war stories. We have a female character who is very smart and powerful and, you know, can take care of her stuff. She likes to learn. I thought the world building and characters were great and that the story flowed pretty seamlessly. The one thing I have to say about The Poppy War, what everyone says, that it is very, very disturbing, and it definitely is. I felt like a lot of it did have a right to be in the story, considering it is this war in this really, really dark period in time. And I know a lot of people say that it kind of represents the war of Nanking. I don't know if you really call it a war, but I read up on that after, and that was a true piece in history that is extremely, extremely disturbing, and that really happened. So yes, obviously war could really be like that, and it is disturbing. So I think that is important to this book. But even that being said, I feel like the author went so much into detail about this and took so many like chapters and pages describing such the brutality that it kind of took away from it to a point. Like, she was just trying to be disturbing and like to make you feel like that, when she could have briefed it up a little bit while still being disturbing to an extent, if that makes any sense. I feel like it went on a little long, just a little too overboard, but I think the premise, like, I get why she did that, because this is a really brutal world and we have to get that. Again, loved the characters. Characters will die in this book. That's something I really look for in series, because you want to be scared about the character dying. If you know they're not going to die, then there's not really a risk to any of the fights or anything. The magic is really cool, and this ended on a big cliffhanger. So I have the next 2, and they're definitely going to be read in 2024. Next, we have a book that surprised me, but also didn't at the same time, and that is Combat Codes by Alexander Darwin. He is a new author, and he's done jujitsu, which is a martial art, his whole life, And this is about a world where wars and battles are fought and country disputes are fought between two people having a martial arts fight. So the countries put out their best fighters, and that's how all the disputes are handled. So our main character, Sego, he was in this underground fighting ring. Someone finds him and basically brings him up to compete in the prestigious combat academy of their country. So he meets all the other kids, these very powerful kids, and is kind of just trying to make his way up in the ranks at this combat academy. Since Alexander Darwin knows a lot about jiu-jitsu and all the techniques and stuff, it was really, really detailed and cool. And even if you don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, he explains it really well. I did jiu-jitsu for like 2 months, so I understand some, but definitely not all of it. But he paints a really good picture in your head, and this was like watching a real sport or something to me, like the anticipation, seeing who's going to win. The scenery is really cool with all the lights and everything. So yeah, and at the end, there was some big plot twists, and we started kind of going deeper and expanding on our world a little bit. We saw a good amount of the world in different like religions and groups, but that started to be expanded on, and I'm really excited for book 2, which I have. It's called Griever's Blood. It came out in December, so I'm so excited to read that. But yeah, if you like military fighting, academy, sci-fi, then you'll love this. Honestly, it reminds me a lot. I just read The Will of the Many, and it kind of reminds me of this, like going into this combat school, making your way up and hating the government. Coming in at my third favorite book of the year, we have Jade City. Everybody talks about Jade City. It was great, did not disappoint at all. I read it super fast. This is the one after Six of Crows that actually got me out of my reading slump. On the back, it's literally called like a Godfather type fantasy, and just how can you go wrong with that? You have families, mobs tied with jade that is embedded in you and gives you powers, but they're more realistic type powers, and you really get to know all these characters and their certain struggles that they all go through and how that affects them in the story. And I, again, cannot wait. The other two I have, well, the third one is on its way in the mail. This should be finished in January, if not February, and everyone like freaks out about Jade Legacy. And it's never been on my Barnes & Noble. That's why I got it online. So I cannot wait. And Hilo is one of my favorite characters easily. He's amazing. I need a movie done about this, like, now. All right, we're getting into my top 2, which was pretty hard for me. Sometimes I go back and forth, but I feel like the number 1 just has to be number 1. However, coming in a very, very close second is The Secret History. So after reading If We Were Villains, my cousin mentioned this to me, and I didn't think I would like it because how much I kind of disliked If We Were Villains. I had a hatred of If We Were Villains for a little bit, to be honest. So I wasn't that excited about this, especially because this seemed like a slower, it's old, like classic read, which I'm not usually into. So I had very little hopes for this, but this just gripped me from the beginning. I think I read this faster than I read any book this whole year. And I just still think about this book constantly. Like, it's just so good. There's so many theories in it, and a lot of the theories make sense. Like, you can just do a deep dive on this book for hours, and I do. I love like psychology and in-depth characters, and this literally follows a friend group descending into madness, and you see it from one character's perspective, but you really get to know these people well. But that's also the thing, is that our character is a very unreliable narrator. This is everything that he is saying. So how he sees these people. And it's all just really unique, really interesting, and I loved every bit of it. Where I said If We Were Villains was like surface level, they kind of tell you what to think. Donna Tartt just makes you think it. She describes everything in such a great way. I felt the scenery 100%, felt like I was in this world, and even though I did not find anything relatable really about any of these characters, thank God, because they're all pretty insane people, I felt attached to them, and I grew really attached to them and wanted to see how it turned out. I thought it was very unique how she started off by, you know, saying that they killed their friend, and then it goes back in time as we kind of see what led up to that, and also the events that happened after. So Secret History is amazing. If you have not read it, you just need to go read it. That leads me to my favorite read of 2023, and pretty much ever, because I stopped reading for so long, and that is the Red Rising series. I have book 2 here because I gave book 1 to my cousin, but all the books are the same. I only read the first 3 in the trilogy, and I have to read the next 3. So again, as everything I've been saying, that's on my list for this year, 100%. I need to know what happens to this crew. But Darrow is such a good character. The Uprising, the world is so unique and well made. It started from Mars and then went to outer space. We grow so attached to these characters. They definitely will die, if you know the Red Rising series. Darrow is a great morally gray character. He does it so well. And I just have a deep obsession with his books. The writing, the pace, the fights, the world, the caste system, just everything about this book. I do not really have much bad things to say about it, except for in book 3, I think Pierce Brown used the term "Bye Felicia." So, you know, besides that point, they're all 10 out of 10 books. Have to go read Red Rising if you didn't. And Red Rising pretty much started my book obsession. Fourth Wing did a little bit, but once I read Red Rising, I was like, oh, I have to find, like, reading is amazing. I forgot about it, and I need to read more now. So thank you, Pierce Brown and Red Rising. But yeah, those were my top 5 best and worst books of 2023. Let me know yours down below, and let me know what you guys want to read next year.